Hello and welcome back to another edition of The Deep Dive. I am absolutely buzzing with energy today because we are tackling a topic that literally moves the nation. It reshapes our cities, it defines our rural economy, and quite honestly, it is probably the story of someone you know, or maybe even your own story.
It's fundamental to understanding modern India.
It really is. We are talking about the invisible engine of the Indian economy, migration. But before we get into the heavy lifting, and we have a lot of heavy lifting to do today, I need to address the elephant in the room, or rather the algorithm in the room.
Ah, yes. The dreaded retention hook, the thing that decides if we live or die on the timeline.
Exactly. Look, we are diving deep today. We are talking policy, history, sociology, and hard data. But to keep this ship sailing, to keep this project alive, we need you to do something for us right now. It takes 2 seconds.
It really does.
If you are listening to this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button for the Simplified UPSC by PPP channel. It is a small click for you, but it makes a massive, massive difference for us. It tells the platform that high-quality educational content actually matters.
It absolutely helps the content reach the aspirants and the learners who need it most. We aren't doing this for the algorithm, we're doing it for you, but we need the algorithm to find you.
Precisely. And if you are finding actual value in these deep dives, if they are helping you connect the dots in a way that dry textbooks just don't, we humbly request you to support the channel on Patreon if you are capable. Your support is the fuel that keeps the super useful content coming. It allows us to do the research, the editing, and the production. And a massive, massive shout out to all our existing supporters. You guys are the real MVPs.
Truly. We couldn't do the deep research without you, so thank you.
Also, don't forget to like the video and share your valuable comments below. We read them and we love them. Now, for the resources, I know some of you are scrambling for a pen and paper right now. Relax.
We've got you covered.
Free notes with practice PYQs, that's previous year questions, are available on the public Telegram channel.
But for those who want the full arsenal.
Exactly. If you want to access all videos of this series at once, along with the organized pre-kim notes, and I'm talking detailed notes, extra PYQs, and model mains answers, you need to join the private Telegram library. Just DM us on the public Telegram channel to get in. Okay, housekeeping done. Let's dive.
Let's do it.
Today we are unpacking Chapter 2 of the NCERT Class 12 book, India, People and Economy. The topic is migration, types, causes, and consequences. And let me tell you, this isn't just about moving from point A to point B.
Not at all. At its core, migration is the redistribution of population over time and space. It's a dynamic process. And for our listeners, our mission today is very specific. We aren't just summarizing a textbook.
No.
We are analyzing the types, causes, and consequences of migration through the lens of the UPSC syllabus. We're going to connect the raw data from the NCERT directly to the questions that have appeared in the civil services examination over the last decade.
That is the sweet spot. We want those aha moments where you see a stat and realize, oh, that's how I answer that general studies paper 1 question. So let's start at the beginning. The concept itself. When we think of Indian history, we usually think of kings, battles, monuments, static borders.
Fix things.
Yes, but the NCERT opens with a beautiful quote that suggests history is actually about flow, about movement.
Yes, it quotes the renowned poet Firaq Gorakhpuri. He said, "Sar zamin hind par akwam ialam ke firake, bastagaye or Hindustan bantagaya."
It sounds incredibly poetic. Can we break down what that actually means for a geography student?
I mean, roughly translated, it means something like the caravans of people from all over the world kept coming and settling in India, and thus India was formed. It frames India not as a static entity that existed and then people entered,
Right.
but as a melting pot created by the waves of migration. It challenges the notion of a fixed identity and replaces it with a fluid one. India, in this view, is a result of accumulation.
That's a powerful way to frame the mindset for this chapter. But for the exam, and for a real understanding of the economy, we need to get specific about these waves. The source text breaks down the Indian diaspora, the people who moved out of India, into 3 distinct waves. I want to unpack these because they represent 3 totally different economic eras of the world.
Absolutely.
Wave number 1 takes us back to the colonial era.
Right. This is the period of British rule. We are talking about millions of Indians being sent abroad as indentured laborers, often referred to as Gurmitias.
Gurmitia. It's such a specific word. It comes from the word agreement, right? Because the workers couldn't pronounce the English word agreement, it became Gurmit.
Exactly. And that etymology tells you everything you need to know about the power dynamic. They were bound by these paper contracts. This wasn't a luxury cruise or a choice to explore the world. This was, for all intents and purposes, a substitute for slavery.
So the British Empire had abolished slavery, but they still needed the labor.
They still needed cheap, expendable labor for the sugar plantations in the colonies. So they looked to India.
And where were they sent? This really maps out the global footprint of Indian culture today.
Oh, absolutely. They were sent to work on plantations in places like Mauritius, the Caribbean islands. We're talking countries like Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Fiji, and South Africa. Even the French and Dutch got in on it, sending Indians to Reunion Island, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and Suriname.
And the conditions, I can't imagine they were good.
They were brutal. I mean, they were living in slum-like conditions, bound by these very strict, time-limited contracts. Their freedom was curtailed. But here's the crucial takeaway for the exam and for understanding geopolitics today.
Okay.
This wave established the foundational Indian population in those regions. When you see a prime minister of Indian origin in the UK, or a president in Guyana, or the massive Indian influence in Mauritius, you are seeing the long-term legacy of this wave one. They went as laborers, but they stayed, and they built communities.
So that's wave one. Colonial, indentured plantation work. A story of exploitation, really. Now, fast forward. Wave two. We are in modern times, post-independence. Who's moving now?
This represents a shift, a big one. We moved to semi-skilled and skilled labor. In the early decades after independence, we saw professionals, artisans, traders, and factory workers moving out in search of economic opportunities.
Where were they headed initially?
Initially, there was movement to neighboring countries like Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and some African countries like Kenya and Uganda.
But then something massive happened in the 1970s that changed the game completely. I mean, it changed the entire landscape of states like Kerala.
The oil boom in West Asia. This is pivotal. In the 1970s, the Gulf region just exploded with economic activity because of the spike in oil prices. They had the money, but they didn't have the infrastructure or the manpower to build it.
And India had the manpower.
In abundance. This triggered a massive outflow of labor from India to the Gulf region, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait. We're talking construction workers, semi-skilled tradesmen, drivers, service staff.
And unlike Wave 1, these people weren't necessarily looking to settle down permanently, were they? Their goal was different.
Correct. And that is a vital distinction. Wave 2 is characterized by the intent to return, or at least the intent to send money back. This is the birth of the massive remittance economy that we will definitely discuss later. They went to the Gulf, lived often in labor camps, saved every single rupee, and sent it back to build houses and educate children in India.
Okay, so Wave 2 is the Gulf boom and the Southeast Asia trade. Much more economic agency there. Now, Wave 3. This is the one we hear about on the news today. The brain drain.
Or, as we might nuance it later, the brain gain. But historically, yes, from the 1960s onwards, but really accelerating in the 90s and 2000s with liberalization, we saw high-level professionals leaving. Doctors, engineers, management consultants, financial experts, and later, of course, the software engineers.
The IT crowd. The stereotype of the Indian techie in Silicon Valley.
Precisely. They headed to the USA, Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. This group is distinct because they are highly educated and often end up in the highest income brackets of their host countries. As of the 2001 context in our source, the Indian diaspora was spread across 110 countries and numbered about 20 million people.
And that number is much, much higher today.
Much higher. And their influence in global policy and tech is disproportionate to their numbers.
It's incredible to think about that reach. From plantation workers in Fiji to CEOs in Silicon Valley, that's the arc of the Indian diaspora. It really is a history of the world through Indian eyes. Now let's bring it back home, literally. We need to measure migration within India. The census has a specific way of counting this, and it's not as simple as asking, did you move?
No, and this is where technical precision matters for the aspirant. The census uses two specific criteria to catch different types of movement. If you're a serious student, you need to know the difference between these two data points.
Okay.
The first criterion is place of birth.
Okay, walk us through that. What does it mean?
Simply put, if your place of birth is different from the place of enumeration, meaning the place where the census taker finds you standing right now, you are a lifetime migrant.
So if I was born in Patna, but the census taker counts me in Delhi, I'm a migrant, even if I've lived in Delhi for 40 years.
Yes, you are a lifetime migrant. It captures the fact that at some point in your life, you moved from your origin.
That seems broad. I mean, it captures the movement, but maybe not the recent trends, right?
Exactly. That's why we have the second criterion, place of last residence.
Mm.
This is different. If the place you lived immediately before coming to the enumeration point is different, you are a migrant by last residence.
Ah, okay. So why do they need two definitions? Is it just bureaucratic redundancy?
No, it provides depth. It's actually very clever because people move multiple times. You might be born in Patna, place of birth, move to Mumbai for college,
Right.
and then move to Delhi for work.
Right.
Under the place of birth definition, you are a migrant from Patna. But under the place of last residence, you are a migrant from Mumbai.
I see. So the last residence data helps policymakers understand the current flows of labor.
Exactly. Are people coming from villages,
Mm.
or are they moving from small towns to big cities? It captures the immediate economic currents, which is what you need for planning.
And the numbers are huge, right?
They are staggering. The 2001 census data, which is our reference point in the text, shows that out of over 1 billion people, roughly 315 million were migrants based on the place of last residence.
315 million. That's nearly a third of the population on the move. That's essentially the entire population of the United States just shifting around inside India. That is a massive demographic churn.
It is. It's constant.
Mhm.
And to understand where they are going, we look at the streams of migration.
I love this visualization in the text. Imagine 4 arrows representing the flow of people. Arrow 1, rural to rural. Arrow 2, rural to urban. Arrow 3, urban to urban. And arrow 4, urban to rural. Now, here is where it gets really interesting for the exam. There is a massive gender disparity in these streams. It's not a uniform flow.
This is a classic UPSC observation, a favorite area. If you look at the rural to rural stream, it is overwhelmingly dominated by females.
Now, why? I mean, are women just moving from village to village for work? What's the specific driver here?
It's a structural social driver, marriage. In the patriarchal tradition of most of India, especially North India, women move to their husband's village after marriage. So the data shows millions and millions of women moving R to R.
So the cause is marriage.
The primary cause is marriage. Economically, they might end up working in agriculture in the new village, of course, but the trigger for the migration itself is social.
So if you see a question about rural to rural migration, your mind should immediately go to social factors and marriage, not necessarily job hunting.
Correct. But on the flip side, look at the rural to urban stream. Who dominates that?
It's got to be males.
Overwhelmingly. This is driven by economic reasons, work, and employment. Men leave the villages to find jobs in the cities. This creates a fascinating demographic skew, which we will talk about in the consequences section. Villages with more women and elderly, cities with more men.
Before we move on, I want to link this to a previous year question. This is how we make the theory practical. In 2015, GS Paper 1, Question 11, UPSC asked, discuss the changes in the trends of labor migration within and outside India in the last 4 decades.
This is direct hit, a perfect synthesis question. To answer this, you would use exactly what we just discussed.
Okay, break it down for us. How would you structure that answer?
Okay, so for the outside India part, you track the shift. You talk about the decline of the indentured model and the rise of the Gulf boom, that's the low-skilled wave. And then you discuss the current modern professional exodus, which is the high-skilled wave. The trend is from forced labor to voluntary economic migration to high-value professional migration.
And for the within India part?
There, you discuss the massive rural to urban shift driven by economics.
Yeah.
But, and this is the high-value point that gets you the extra marks, you must acknowledge the constant high-volume rural-to-rural migration driven by marriage. The trend is the increasing economic mobility of males toward urban centers and the global mobility of skilled professionals. You have to mention both to show you understand the full picture.
See? That's why we do this deep dive. The NCERT text is literally the answer key if you know how to read it. Now let's look at the map. Spatial variation. Where are people going? Who are the magnet states?
The data is very, very clear. Maharashtra is the #1 destination for net in-migration. It's the economic powerhouse. Following Maharashtra, you have Delhi, Gujarat, and Haryana.
That makes sense. Industrial hubs, the capital city, and the agricultural and industrial growth in Haryana, these are the magnets. They have the jobs.
And the sending states, the ones with the largest net out migration, are, unsurprisingly, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar.
The densely populated heartland.
Exactly. And when you zoom in on the cities, Greater Mumbai attracts the highest number of migrants. It is the ultimate urban agglomeration. The City of Dreams narrative is backed by hard data.
So we know where they are going, but let's dig deeper into the why. This brings us to the mechanics of migration. Push and pull factors. This is standard geography, but let's break it down so it sticks.
It's a useful framework. Think of it as a force. Push factors are the get-out signals. They force you or compel you to leave your point of origin. Pull factors are the come-here signals. They attract you to a destination.
Let's list the push factors. Why are people leaving UP and Bihar in such large numbers?
Well, poverty is number one. Then there is the high population pressure on the land. Too many people, not enough farm to support them. The land holdings get smaller and smaller with every generation.
To basic survival.
Yes, and a lack of basic infrastructure like good health and education facilities. And then you have the distress factors. Natural disasters, floods, droughts, cyclones, earthquakes, tsunamis. These can wipe out a livelihood overnight.
The text actually gives us some narrative case studies here to make this human. There's the story of Subbalakshmi.
Yes, she's a fisherwoman from the coast of Tamil Nadu. The tsunami swept away her home and family. She had no choice but to move to a slum in Chennai to work as a domestic servant. That is a classic distress migration, driven by a natural disaster push factor. She didn't move because she wanted a city life. She moved because her life in the village was destroyed.
And then there's Arif. His story is different, but also a push.
Right. Arif is from a village where there's simply no work. He has debts. He moves to manage the survival of his family. That's an economic push driven by poverty and lack of opportunity. He is essentially an economic refugee within his own country.
Now compare them to the pull factors. What draws people to Mumbai or Delhi? What's the siren call?
Better economic opportunities. And we need to be specific about what that means. It means regular work and higher wages. That's the key distinction. In the village, agricultural work might be seasonal. You work hard for a few months, then there's nothing. In the city, the factory or the construction site runs all year.
Consistency.
Consistency is a huge pull. Also, better education, better health facilities, and let's not underestimate the city lights, sources of entertainment, and the perception of a modern, upwardly mobile life.
And we have a case study for that too, right? Ram Babu.
Exactly. Ram Babu is an engineer from Bihar. He moves to Bhilai for education and then gets a job at the steel plant. That is pure pull. He's chasing a career and a better standard of living, not just fleeing disaster. He represents the aspirational middle-class migrant.
You know, there is a very recent question that connects directly to this. 2024 GS Paper 1, Question 5, it asked, why do large cities tend to attract more migrants than smaller towns? Discuss in the light of conditions in developing countries.
That is a beautiful question because it asked you to apply these pull factors we just discussed. You would argue that large cities like Mumbai or Delhi offer what economists call agglomeration economies.
What does that mean in simple terms?
It means everything is concentrated there. The big companies, the best universities, the top hospitals, the government offices, they have the infrastructure, the regular wages, the health and education facilities that smaller towns simply don't have. In developing countries like India, the gap between a metro city and a small town is massive.
So the pull is just stronger.
Exponentially stronger. Because the disparity in services is so high, you use the insert points on better economic opportunities and regularity of work to build the core of that answer.
Perfect. So we have the history, the types, and the causes. Now we enter the most critical part of this deep dive for mains answers, the consequences of migration.
And remember, for UPSC, consequences are never just one-sided. It's not migration is good or migration is bad. It is a complex mix of benefits and problems, so you need to categorize them carefully. Economic, demographic, social, environmental, and the impact on women.
Okay, let's start with one. Economic consequences. What's the biggest positive, the one everyone talks about?
Remittances. Without a doubt, this is the lifeblood, the money sent home by migrants.
The text gives a data point from 2002. India received US $11 billion in international remittances. That number has skyrocketed since then, but even back then, it was massive.
It was. But don't forget the internal picture. For states like Bihar, UP, Odisha, and Himachal Pradesh, the money sent back by internal migrants acts as a crucial economic support system. It's a huge wealth transfer.
And what is this money used for? It's not for luxuries, is it?
No, it's used for the basics. For survival and incremental improvement. Food, repayment of debts, medical treatment, marriages, and crucially, children's education. This is how a family in a village in Bihar can afford to send their child to a decent school. It's essentially a wealth transfer from the industrial centers to the rural heartland. Without this flow, many rural economies would simply collapse.
And there is a fascinating connection in the text to the Green Revolution. I hadn't really thought about this link before reading this chapter.
Yes. This is a nugget you must use in an answer. The text explicitly states that the rural-to-rural migration of labor from places like UP, Bihar, and MP to Punjab, Haryana, and West UP provided the critical labor force that made the Green Revolution successful.
That is huge. We usually think of the Green Revolution as just seeds, fertilizer, and irrigation.
But it was also about the hands that worked the fields. The Punjab farmer provided the land and capital. The Bihar migrant provided the labor. It was a symbiotic economic relationship that secured India's food security.
But we have to look at the negative economic consequence. Unregulated migration leads to overcrowding in cities.
Yes. It puts immense pressure on urban infrastructure in Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Delhi, leading to the formation of slums and informal settlements. The city creates wealth, but it struggles to house the very people who are creating it.
Which brings us to 2, demographic consequences. This is about the people mix.
Right. Migration redistributes the population. That's the definition. Cities grow extremely fast. But the real issue for social scientists and policymakers is the imbalance.
Because migration is selective, it's not a random sample of the population that moves.
Precisely. Who moves? Mostly young, skilled, or able-bodied males. So what happens to the rural areas, the source regions? They lose their young, productive workforce. It hollows out the village economy and social structure.
And this messes up the sex ratio, doesn't it?
Severely. In the source areas, like the hill districts of Uttarakhand, for example, you have a high female sex ratio because the men have left for the plains to find work. In the destination cities, you have a high male sex ratio because the men have arrived, often alone. This creates all sorts of social distortions in both places.
This connects directly to a 2013 PYQ from GS Paper 1, Question 18. It asked about the growing feeling of regionalism and the demand for separate states. How does migration feed into that?
This is a sophisticated linkage. When you have massive migration changing the demographics of a destination, skewing the sex ratio, crowding the labor market, putting pressure on resources, it often triggers sons of the soil movements.
Oh, okay. The locals feel threatened.
Exactly. The local population feels threatened by the influx of outsiders. They feel their culture is being diluted or their jobs are being taken. This demographic shift is a root cause of regionalism and political friction. You can't understand the regional politics in places like Mumbai or Bangalore without understanding these migration flows. The demographic consequence leads directly to a political consequence.
That is a powerful insight. Demographic shifts drive political sentiment. Moving on to 3, social consequences.
The text describes migrants as agents of social change.
I like that term. It sounds positive.
It is, largely.
Huh.
When people move from a city back to their village for a festival or a visit, they bring more than just money. They bring new ideas.
Like what?
Ideas about family planning, girls' education, new technologies. They become the conduit for modernization in rural areas. They break the social and intellectual insulation of the village.
And in the cities themselves, migration creates a composite culture.
Yes. Different cultures intermix. It can break down narrow caste and regional barriers. You eat different food, you hear different languages, you learn about different traditions. It widens the mental horizon. The city becomes a melting pot.
But there's always a but.
But there is a dark side. The text mentions anonymity. In a village, everyone knows you. There is social pressure, sure, but there's also a community support system. In a city, you are anonymous. You are just a face in the crowd.
Which can create a sense of isolation.
A social vacuum, as the text puts it, and that sense of isolation and dejection can lead people, particularly young men who are living alone, into crime or drug abuse. It's the alienation that comes with the migrant experience.
That's a heavy reality. It's the psychological cost of development. Let's look at the physical reality. 4, environmental consequences.
This is where the unplanned nature of migration really hits hard. Cities just aren't ready for the sheer volume of people arriving. This leads to the explosive growth of slums and shanty colonies.
Dharavi in Mumbai is the classic example referenced in the source context, right?
Yes. And the strain on resources is physical and tangible. Groundwater depletion because everyone is digging bore wells, air pollution from increased traffic and industry, massive sewage disposal issues, overburdened solid waste management systems. The city literally cannot process the amount of human activity.
This screams PYQ. There were 2 in 2016 GS Paper 1. One about smart cities objectives, Q11, and another about major cities becoming vulnerable to flood conditions, Q17.
They are deeply connected. Why are cities like Mumbai or Chennai flooding? Because unplanned urbanization driven by migration has blocked natural drainage channels. We build on wetlands and floodplains to house the incoming population.
And then we're surprised when it floods.
Exactly. And why do we need a smart cities mission? to try and retroactively manage this load, to create systems that can handle the density that migration brings. You cannot write a good answer on urban floods or smart cities without mentioning the relentless pressure of migration on urban land use.
It's all connected. Migration leads to unplanned growth, which leads to environmental collapse, which necessitates new policy interventions. Finally, let's talk about the 5, impact on women.
This is a dual-edged sword, and you have to present both sides. On one hand, the text highlights that when men migrate, the women are left behind in the rural areas. This increases the physical and mental pressure on them immensely.
They have to do everything.
Everything. They have to manage the farm, the home, the kids, and the elderly. It's a huge burden. We often call that the feminization of agriculture.
But what's the other side of the sword?
The other side is when women themselves migrate. Migration of women for work or education, not just for marriage, can enhance their autonomy. It gives them a role in the economy, financial independence, but it also increases their vulnerability to exploitation in the workforce, especially in the informal sector.
Now, there is one specific exception mentioned in the text that we have to talk about, a cultural outlier. Meghalaya.
Ah, yes, the exception that proves the rule. It's a fantastic detail to include in an answer. In most of India, marriage migration means women move to the husband's house, but Meghalaya is a matrilineal society.
So the customs are completely different.
Correct. In Meghalaya, the custom often involves the man moving to the woman's village or the couple staying with the woman's family. So if you look at the census data for Meghalaya, the female marriage migration statistics look completely different from the rest of India. It's a crucial cultural nuance. It shows that migration patterns aren't just economic, they are deeply cultural.
I love those specific details. They show the examiner you really read the text. Okay, we have covered the core content. Now, I want to do a PYQ rapid fire. We've touched on some, but let's synthesize a few more to show how versatile this chapter is.
Let's go.
2020 GS Paper 1, Question 9. COVID-19 pandemic accelerated class inequalities and poverty in India. How does this chapter help us answer that?
You link it directly to the vulnerability of migrants. The pandemic triggered a massive reverse migration. All those push-pull factors flipped overnight. The city, the pole, became a trap. The lack of social safety nets for migrants, which we discussed under consequences, was brutally exposed. The inequality wasn't just about money. It was about having a safe place to be. The migrant crisis was the inequality crisis in a very visible way.
Okay, next. 2014 GS Paper 1, Question 1. Urban planning, Indus Valley versus present.
Contrast is key here. Indus Valley civilization was planned before settlement. Present-day urbanization is often a reaction to migration. The slums and shanties mentioned in the environmental consequences section are the direct result of unplanned migration, unlike the planned grid system of Harappa. We're chasing the population growth, not planning for it.
That's a great contrast. And finally, 2016 GS Paper 1, Question 12. Unequal distribution of benefits of development promotes regionalism.
This brings everything full circle. You connect this to the push factors. Why do people leave Bihar and UP? Because the benefits of development, the jobs, the infrastructure, the schools, are not there. They're concentrated in Maharashtra and Gujarat. This economic disparity causes the migration. The migration then causes the demographic friction and the sons of the soil sentiment we discussed, which leads to regionalism.
So, at its root, migration is a symptom of unequal development.
Precisely. If development were distributed more equally, migration would be a choice, not a distress-driven necessity.
Wow. We have traveled from the colonial sugar plantations to the tech hubs of Silicon Valley, from the villages of Bihar to the slums of Mumbai. We've looked at the money, the gender dynamics, and the environmental cost.
It's a massive, sprawling topic.
Before we wrap up, let's just summarize the journey. We started with the definition, a redistribution of population. We traced the 3 waves. Indentured, the oil boom, and the professionals. We analyzed the streams, men for work, women for marriage. We looked at the push of poverty and the pull of wages, and we broke down the consequences, the remittances that funded the Green Revolution versus the environmental collapse of our cities.
And the social cost of anonymity versus the cultural gain of diversity. It's a balance sheet with huge numbers on both sides.
Now, expert, leave us with a final provocative thought, something to chew on after we're done.
Okay. The chapter talks about brain drain as a cost losing our highly skilled people to the West. But in a globalized world, I want you to consider this. Are we moving toward brain gain or maybe even brain circulation? If that diaspora, those 20, 30 million people, connects back to India, investing, mentoring, and building bridges, is migration truly a loss? Or is it an expansion of India's soft power? Is the global Indian actually India's greatest strategic asset? Something to think about.
Brain circulation. I like that. It completely flips the script from Lost to Network.
Indeed.
All right, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. I hope your brain is buzzing with connections.
And ready to write some killer answers?
Absolutely. Now, a quick final reminder. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Simplified UPSC by PPP YouTube channel. It's the best way to ensure you don't miss the next deep dive.
And if you can, please consider supporting us on Patreon. This kind of research takes time and resources, and your support really does keep the lights on.
A huge thank you to everyone who is already supporting us. You guys rock. Please like this video, leave a comment with your takeaways. We really want to know what stood out to you, and share it with your fellow aspirants.
Knowledge grows when shared.
For the materials, free notes and practice PYQs are waiting for you on the public Telegram channel. Go grab them right now.
And for the serious learners who want the full package, all videos, premium organized notes, model answers, the place to be is the private Telegram library. Just send a DM on the public channel to get the details.
That's it from us. Keep learning, stay curious, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye and good luck.